So today we're going to learn a little bit about HP Sprinter. So HP Sprinter is a manual testing tool, kind of helps with the functional and manual testing that you would see typically in the HP ALM environment. And what HP has done is they've created this standalone tool that can be installed onto your local client. So anyone can install it if they have licenses for ALM. It can also be purchased separately. So if you wanted it, maybe 15 packs of Sprinter, you could do that as well. So this is kind of the environment. I've already logged into it, but it connects directly to your ALM environment. So you can have Sprinter hooked up to each project. So whichever tests or requirements, defects, information that you have in a project, you'll notice here that I have the domain that I'm in ALM and then the project itself. So everything that's done here in Sprinter is going to directly connect to this project, which is really nice because that way you don't have to add or upload your testing progress or anything that you're doing in this environment. So it has a direct connection. And the permissions, of course, are based on what's set up in that project. So the admin can go into the project in ALM and determine the Sprinter permissions for each user or for each group. So just kind of the things I want to show you. So there's two tabs in the Sprinter environment. We have the test plan tab and a test run. So the plan tab is going to be where we're going to actually create our tests. So Sprinter will allow you to do that. You can create manual tests as well as business component tests. So either of those can be created here. So as you can see, I can create a new ALM test or a new business component. So I can select either of those options. You can also open tests. So of course, I could open save test cases that are in my ALM environment and either manipulate them here or, as you'll see in a little while, run them in this environment. So you can do either of those things here. I can also save them, of course, to the ALM environment. And then the version, I have version control turned on in ALM, so that's why you're seeing this here. And that way it checks out and checks back in my test cases as I'm creating them. So let me go ahead and show you just how we create a test case in ALM, or in Sprinter, I'm sorry. So I'm going to click on this new HP ALM test. It's going to open up this page. So notice here's my new test run. If I switch to this tab here, test, you notice these are the details. So in ALM, you would see this on the side. You would create your test case, and then on the right-hand side of the screen, you would see details regarding your test case that you just created. So the same here in Sprinter. They just put it into two separate tabs. So it gives you a little bit more space and a little bit more legibility when I'm going through and I can kind of see what's happening in my test. So I can put tests in. So here, I can name the test. So you can rename it. In this case, I'm going to be showing you I'm doing a Southwest test. So I'm just going to go ahead and call it that. Then you could put in a description, like booking a flight is what I'm going to be doing today. And then you could always add some comments as well. And you can add the comments just as you would in ALM, which is really nice. You can just click it. It puts the name of the user that's logged in. So in this case, I'm logged in as an administrator, so that's going to show, and it has the date as well. So then you could put in some comments regarding this test case, and that would show up. You could also add parameters. So we have parameters as well, just like you can in ALM. So you can add new parameters to each test case. You can move those up and down, filter them, all depending on how you want to do it. So let me just show you. You can do a new parameter here, name it, put the default value and description. And you can also add attachments to the test case, just as you can in ALM. So those could be a screenshot. You could put some sort of test plan documentation that you have, maybe business process flow, use cases. All of that can be added here. So those are PDFs, Word documents, text files, URLs, whatever you may need that's relevant to this test case. On this other tab here, now we have the steps. So that was the test details, and then these are the steps that you actually would have for your test case. So you can add steps a number of ways. You can add them by clicking this button, and then you can decide, do you want it to be added after the current step, before, or after all, right? So right now we have step 1 already. So you would enter in your description manually and then your expected result. And then you could put any attachments like I showed you. You could put attachments at the step level as well. And you can put attachments by a screen capture, or you can add attachments, just like you would normally in ALM, to the step itself. In addition to adding the steps this way and manually putting them in like we have been doing in ALM, just a little bit different environment here in Sprinter, they also have this new feature called Steps Capture. So right now, the Steps Capture is set up for my Southwest application, but you can actually set up any application to do this. So you can do, I have a list of items here, so I have some that I've saved that I can access, or you can also add. So you could do a quick add. Quick add is going to pull up everything that's open currently. So right now these are the applications that it sees that are open that I can add to Sprinter. Or you can do a regular add and do a web application, name it, and then put in the URL and the various technologies that are associated with that web page, as well as the browser. So if you want it to be in Firefox or Internet Explorer, both of those are supported in Sprinter. And then the desktop application, I could click that as well. If I know the location and have the executable, I could browse to that, put that in there, and have that saved. And I'll show you why this is kind of nice for Sprinter. So we're going to keep it on Southwest. And what I'm going to do is I can actually click on the Steps Capture button. And what it's going to do is it's going to go up and it's going to open up the Southwest page, and it's going to allow me to capture steps by following my clicks rather than me actually entering in the information on each step. So here's the Southwest page. It opened it up for me because I have that setting set up. And here's the Sprinter page right here at the bottom. So this I can choose to unpin or pin, but it's kind of going to sit on top of the application, allow me to kind of work and move around what I need to. You can also move this if you want. If you need more real estate or a different area of the screen, you can do that. There's a couple options. I can pause my capturing. So as I'm going, if maybe I don't want it to capture a particular step that I'm going to click on, I can go ahead and hit on the pause button and it won't capture that step for me. And then I can click continue when I'm ready to keep going. I can also capture screen capture. So each of the steps as I'm going, if I want to capture some sort of screen image, I can click that for the step and it will do that automatically for me. It actually just captures the whole screen. And then later on you can pick which elements you want to capture if necessary. We also have two options here. So you have multiple user actions per step. So if I select this option here, when I'm recording, it's actually going to put all of the steps into one. So every click that I do is going to show into one big step. So I can do that, or I can do a single user action. So every single action that I do is going to be captured as a separate step. And that's really the one that I want to use for this particular test case. So now that I'm ready to begin testing, let's put in our information here. So I'm going to put in some information. So I'm going to go from, I'm going to look for a flight from New York to Los Angeles. Then, of course, I'm going to select the date. So I'll select I'm going to fly out tomorrow, and I want to come back on the 15th. So notice every time that I'm taking this, it's capturing these steps for me. So then I'm going to hit search. Notice it captured that search button there. And then it's going to bring me to my next page. So let's say I just want to pick these first ones here. Okay, so I want to select that one. And then my returning flight, I'll go ahead and select this one. So notice it's capturing all that information for me. I click on continue. It's going to take me straight to that page. And then I'm going to have my total, right? And then what I need. So not actually a bad price for going to New York from New York to LA. So at this point, I could keep clicking continue, obviously. I personally don't want to book the flight, so I'm going to leave that for now and just say that this is my test case here. So I'm going to go ahead and click the stop button. So that's going to end all the steps capturing that I'm doing, and it's going to put all of those steps into the Sprinter environment. So you notice I have each of them here. Now one of these, like this one, for instance, I didn't want this one, right, because that was an accident. I actually want this one. So you can actually go through and decide which steps you actually want to take. So I can delete that one, and then you could reorder your steps to make sure that says number 1 and go that way. But you can kind of manipulate this, pick the information that you want, maybe just take out some of this information if you don't want it or you want it to be more specific, and then you would add an expected result as well. So it's kind of a nice feature. It has that in there that it just kind of captures the steps, so you're not having to write them out maybe in Excel and then get them into the tool. It also has a call to test like you have in ALM, so you can call a test that's related to this test case and sync them up that way. Or you can import the steps. If you're familiar with the ALM environment, you know that you can upload from Excel into ALM or Microsoft Word. So this one does from Excel or CSV file, and it'll put them into Sprinter. So you can run that test and save it as well as manipulate it in this tool. So some really nice features with this. I'm going to go ahead and save this test. So what this is going to do is it's going to open up my ALM environment. So you'll see that I have, these are all my test cases. So this would be the test plan tree in ALM. And it's going to show all the different folders that I have. So I have a Southwest folder here, and I have a book of flights. So I'm going to do a flight check, and then I would just click on OK. And that's going to save my test case into the ALM environment. So some really nice features with Sprinter just kind of makes the testing process and creating those test cases a little bit easier and a little bit faster. This would save you time as you go through, and you can kind of click and pick the test cases that you want, which is really nice, or the test steps. Okay, well now let me show you the running of the test scripts. So we've created our test cases. Now we're going to go to this Run tab here. So the Run tab has a couple items I want to point out. This Run setup, this is where your test cases are going to show up. So you can open those test scripts. So I'm going to open up the HPALM test. So this is going to be my test lab environment in ALM. So I have a test set that's already set up and already has test cases associated to it. So I'm going to select that test set that I have, and it's going to upload all the test cases that are related to that particular test set. So you'll notice I have a few in here, and I have a few that have been run, failed, not completed already. So you can select all of those items, or you can just select a couple. So then I could just select maybe these three, and then click on Open. And then I will have those particular test cases now are associated to this run. So I'll be able to go through and run them with Sprinter. While that's loading, I'll show you, kind of point out the power mode, although I can't click on it. But the power mode down here is going to allow you to do a few things with Sprinter that you can't do with the ALM environment. So you have data injection, you have macros, and mirroring, all nice features that you can get with Sprinter. So these can be set up and maintained by the administrator or the person running the test. So notice it has a few things. The scanner, this is more for web pages, but it does have some nice things. It'll scan the application, so application or web. Localization kind of checks for the translation, different languages, web standards, and then broken links. So it can scan all these things for you throughout your test. So as you run your test with Sprinter, you can kind of check off these things. And I'll show you where you can do that when you're running your test. Okay. You can also click on the different test cases themselves. So you'll notice I have these, and it gives me the details as I click on each of these items, the summary, and then the description. Right. So there's 10 parameters in here. So I wanted to show you that I added parameters in ALM. So that's why these are showing up now in Sprinter. So anything that you add in ALM, whether it's a test, an attachment or a parameter such as this, it's going to show up in the Sprinter environment. Then it's also going to show you, I can look at the number of tests if I want, kind of pick them out this way. Right? I can export these, print, as well as email. So that's kind of the general settings of this test. It's going to give it a random run name. So this is just automatically generated so that I can look it up in the ALM environment. So let's go ahead and run this. It's going to run all of the active tests that I have in here. So if I have 3 tests, it's going to want to go through all 3 of them. Of course, you can stop or pause it at any time, but it does want to go through the 3. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Run button. So it's going to prepare the run. Now, currently, I have it set up so it's going to open up the Southwest page. These are actually not related to the Southwest website, but we're just going to go ahead and pretend and use them like this is the environment that we're testing. So here's the different items that you will see in the Sprinter that make it a little different than the ALM manual runner tool. So you have all of the test steps down here in the bottom left. So this is where you're going to see the first step and then the expected result. So it's going to connect to the Mercury Tour site is what this wants to do, and then the expected result of that step. Now in ALM, you would see it just in one window. You would have one window that would show all the steps. This one kind of separates it out a little bit. So let me click on this. This is actually going to be your actual result. So what you can do is you can take a screenshot of it, so you can save a screen capture, or you can save an annotation. So there's two of those things. I'm going to show you the annotation. So what the annotation does is it takes a screenshot of whatever is in the background at that time. So in this case, we have the Southwest page that was in the background, so it's going to take a screenshot of that. Then you have this nice little annotation toolbar over here. So there's several different tools that you can use in so many different types. You can do a selection tool. You can delete an annotation. You can add text boxes. So maybe if you want to add some documentation here for a developer or for a tester or for whoever may be accessing the application, you can put that in there for them as a note. You can, of course, draw around different areas, and you can choose different types. So for this box, notice I can choose different colors, different widths, different things like that. Circles, of course, you can point arrows, highlight information. You can also do some color pickers, right? So if you were interested in that, maybe you could put that on there, and it's going to kind of point out the different colors and different options that you have. You can also have a ruler, so if you want to measure something out, maybe you need to point something out, the distance between two objects. It allows you to put all that stuff in there, which is really convenient and really helpful when you're going through your testing process, something that you don't get with the ALM manual runner. This gives you a lot more just adding notes and putting different items in there. So you can save the screen capture. You can save it there. You can also, the annotation tools allows you to add a defect at this time, so you could do that as well. Or you can save this to the actual result like we saw it. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. So that's the captured image. I'm going to click on OK. Now to pass your test and fail them, it's very simple. So you have this little bar up here that you can see. So to pass them, all I have to do is click on that button, and it's going to go down to the next test step. And it's also going to show you the duration down here. You don't get that with the manual runner and the ALM. And then it's going to show you the amount that you have left to complete. So I have 12 steps that I need to get through to complete this test case. So it's going to kind of watch that for me. I don't have it enabled on this one because I'm not capturing screen captures, but you can also do a storyboard. So if you would open that, it's actually going to capture a screen for each of the steps that you're taking. So if you're moving through screens, it's going to capture them for you, and then you could go back and kind of look at the different screens and see what's changing between them. So it would capture that information for you there. You can also display the user action. So whichever clicks that I'm taking on the page, it can contain those for you there, and that could come in handy when you want to come back and can review your test case and review the steps that the user took. That'll do that for you automatically, so the user's not having to track all that information. Also want to show the defect. So we have a smart defect, a new defect, and an add defect reminder. So the smart defect, let me show you that. So this is the smart defect. So what it does is it can do the current step, or it can do all steps, or custom. So it kind of allows you to capture a little more information when doing your defect. It's also going to automatically capture the current screen capture, and if I had it enabled, it would do a screen movie, including the last whatever amount of time that I would want to include. So you can also do the last 5 user actions. You can use the actual result. So it allows you to do a few more things than you could do with a regular defect. I'm going to cancel that. You can also do a new defect. That's just going to be the regular defect that you would see in ALM. So I could click on that. It would just open up a regular defect page and then go from there. So as it's trying to load that, let me just say, so there's a defect reminder as well, which is a really convenient tool. And what the defect reminder allows you to do is as you're going through your testing process, you can click on that defect reminder because maybe you don't want to enter the details right at that time, and it's not a defect that impacts the rest of your test case, right? So it's just something, maybe it's a cosmetic item, maybe it's just something that's spelled wrong, whatever it could be. you could put that in there and just say, I want to be reminded. And at the end of your test, it'll actually come up and tell you, oh, you have this defect. Did you want to actually submit a defect for this test case? And it'll allow you to do that at that point. Also up here, I think it's stuck trying to make a defect, so I apologize. But you have these different buttons up here that I can still talk about. So we have the run control, so that's going to allow you to go in between each of your tests. So if you want to skip and go to the next test, you would click on the button in here, as well as selecting different items like the screen captures. It would show you how many screens you have captured or how many clicks the user has done. And then you could also stop and pause your test from there as well. There's a macro tab, so that would allow you to inject your macros that you have already created or record or run new ones. So it'll allow you to do that from that tab. And then the scanner tab is what I was talking about. That's what allows you to go in and it'll scan your web page, scan it for broken links, scan your application for maybe some text errors, whatever it might be. There's 4 that I showed you at the beginning that would show up in the scanners tab. And then once you're done with your test, of course, you would just end the run. And that's going to be under that run control option. And you would stop the run, and then you would see your results in the Sprinter application.